This chapter shows the major update on Squarespace, which is Fluid Engine. All of these sections, and if you build a brand new website or have just inherited a new website on Squarespace, then you'll probably find it's already built on Fluid Engine. If you haven't, then there's going to be one of two things. Either you're on Squarespace 7.1, which is the latest version that allows you to upgrade any section to Fluid Engine, or you're on the version 7.0, which doesn't allow that option. And the way of finding this out would be to add a section. And if I scroll to the bottom, I can add a blank section using the Classic Editor. Classic Editor has this upgrade option in the top left-hand corner. If you didn't have the option to add this into your website, you're probably working on Squarespace 7.0, which means that this is the format you have. Everything's using this blocks. We have spaces that I use to divide content. If I just put some placeholder text in, let's try, just use this paragraph here and paste that sentence in there. I might just double it up. For example, in the Classic Editor, we use spacer blocks to adjust the width and the sections of our page. We could then potentially use another spacer block to the right to build it in section by section. The Classic Editor uses what we call a 12-column grid. 12 even-sized columns that adjust depending on the size of the screen. And so when we increase or decrease a section, it snaps to one of 12 columns. With the new Fluid Engine, we see the grid as we start moving things around. And what we can notice is that's actually 24 columns. So it gives us more flexibility and control over our layouts, whilst the Classic Editor is more rigid, more blocky by nature. Still, we've got this option to add in a button. One of the advantages of the Classic Editor is actually you can add in content where you want and not have to move it in via selecting an add content option in the top left-hand corner, or add block here, where you then have to move everything in position manually. So that's one advantage of the Classic Editor. There aren't many more. I'm trying to think now, is there anything else that I'd use in the Classic Editor that I don't necessarily use in the Fluid Engine? I suppose one is image blocks here. So with our image blocks, we can have different image designs that are preset and consistent. So we can have an overlap effect here where the text overlaps the image. There's a collage effect which has a nice white block behind it. All of these things can be actually now built manually using Fluid Engine. We can put background blocks as we did previously, overlapping the image, etc. But here's just an example. If you wanted it more rigid, you could add a classic section into any Fluid Engine page. Quite a nifty little feature. What I wanted to show you this for is how we can upgrade. If you're on version 7.0, you're stuck with this approach, which may not be a reason to upgrade. It really depends on how often you're updating your site. But now I've updated that, it's left all the blocks in the same place, but our spacer blocks are gone. And now we are able to use the 24-column grid that appears when we start moving, dragging things around. Some of the things that are very handy with Fluid Engine, I've brushed upon them previously. You can select multiple blocks at the same time. You can align those blocks. The left, for example, if you wanted to bring the button over to the left. You could decide to duplicate all of those items together. Or if you were just fed up with how it's looking, you can select all and delete or remove as many items as you want. There's so much more flexibility with this way of building pages. I'm a huge fan, as you may have noticed. We've also got the option to reduce the size of the text containers. We can decide to put in an image with the text overlapping it and putting the text in a block, as shown on the image block styles in the Classic Editor. So I might want to have that so it snaps to one grid item from the top and the bottom. This image now, if we double click on it, we can upload images from our computer. Click on the plus once, we can browse the stock library and choose an image from the stock library to add into our page. It might take a few seconds to process that. And now we can change the width of the block. So if we wanted this to be more of a background image, we can. We can go into this pencil icon here, go to design, and we can change it from fit to fill, or we could decide to put it in a set shape, and we've got a number of preset shapes here to work from. Circles is the one we probably use most of all. We've also got 3x2, 2x3 options as well, so if you wanted to put it into an oval like that, you can. But we're going to go back to the fill option to fill the container with this rectangular image. And now we're going to select this section, click on the pencil icon. We're going to add a background. The moment we add a background, we can choose the padding that we want around the content. And we can see there's the background. On this screen, there's only a subtle difference. I need to calibrate it a bit better. But if I was just to shorten this down, or I could instead duplicate that box, keep that as paragraph, and now just put a title in here instead. Now we've lost that content at the moment. That's because it's actually behind the image block. So we can see here now that we've got the option to hide our title behind or in front of the image block. So this is another big development with Fluid Engine, is that we can work in layers. So we can decide to move things forward or back, which allows us to create these quite different page layouts. In terms of creating our website templates, it's given us so much more ammunition to create nice layouts without much, if any, custom code. I might decide to get rid of the background then for this text area below, and then we've got this overlapping section title that we could put as, say, for example, heading 3. We can decide how we want it placed in there. We can also see if we click on it once, we've got the block options, and we can change it to align it centrally. Click in again, and we can align that centrally using the text editor. The next chapter, and what could be our final chapter, will be all about the text editor. So yeah, Fluid Engine allows some fluidity to our layouts, and it gives us an awful lot to work with. If you're on the classic editor and you're comfortable with that, absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's what works for you. But if you're looking to get a little bit more out of your site, or if you're wondering how to get used to Fluid Engine, my recommendation would be to create a test page on your site and start playing around with some different structure options, so when you go to put real content in, you have a better feel for what it can do. Hope this has helped. I'll catch you in the next chapter.